Welcome to Beatsource Tech. My name is Mojaxx and this one is going to be a bit different today. We're talking about a live streaming product, so we're going to do it as live. No fancy edits, B-roll and all that kind of stuff. We're going to do it as live. It might be a bit longer, a bit rambling, but I hope you'll stay along for the ride. Why are we talking about live streaming kit in 2025? Well, if you haven't been paying attention, you might not know that actually live streaming is in rude health right now for two main reasons. Firstly, Twitch and their DJ program, which came in last year, it was kind of controversial, to be honest. Like, people were unsure about whether it would impact their revenue, whether or not there'd be restrictions on what you can play. And there are some wrinkles, but on the whole, it's been a massive net positive because Twitch streaming, DJ streaming is now legal, licensed, so it means that the artists and labels do get paid, which is in the end a good thing. And also it is sustainable. It should be there for years to come. And this also means that Twitch, because it's no longer this grey area, this kind of hush hush thing, it's now something that they can promote. So regular DJs, not just, big names like superstars and stuff, regular DJs are getting front page slots on Twitch. And that brings with it thousands upon thousands of live viewers with all the accompanying bits, subs, followers, and all that stuff. Twitch DJing right now is a big deal. And if you dropped off it after the pandemic, might be a good time to think about returning. If you never did it, might be a good time to think about starting, right? It's really, really healthy right now. The other thing is TikTok. Now that has its own issues, particularly in the US at the moment, but nonetheless, I had to kind of reactivate my TikTok account to test out this device we're talking about today. And I discovered there is a really vibrant community of DJs who are reaching great audiences on TikTok. And I believe they're making revenue there as well. And yeah, they're just reaching a lot of people. So TikTok live streaming is also a thing. So I'm not a fan of TikTok. It's not really my platform. Maybe I'm just too old for it. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't really care to either. I like Twitch. That's for me. But yeah, this device today does do TikTok and it works really well for that as well. So yeah, live streaming for DJs, it's a thing right now. And we're talking today about the Yolobox Ultra. First of all, some disclosure. As with the Yolobox Pro that I reviewed a couple of years ago, I think I am going to be able to keep this device if I like it. Spoiler alert, I do, although it isn't perfect, right? Companies outside the DJ world, they operate slightly differently from the regular people that I work with, like Alpha Theta in music, etc. They all know the crack, right? If I don't like something, I won't review it. I will always be honest, with my negative points as well as my positive points. And they had originally, YoloLive had some stipulations about I had to do it in a certain amount of time. I couldn't use other streaming products and all this kind of stuff. And all of that, I was like, nah, not doing that. I'd rather just pass. And so eventually they just agreed to send it to me. I'll make the video when I'm ready. If I want to make a video, that's how we're going. And I'll give my honest, unbiased opinion on this product. They don't get to see the video before it goes live. They don't get any say over the content of this video. I'm just doing my thing as usual, but it's worth pointing that out because this is not a regular DJ product, of course. This is much like the Yolobox Pro that I reviewed before. Let's bring up my iPad, which is coming in via HDMI, so I can show you what this thing is about. Basically, it is a tablet based on the Android kernel. It's a touchscreen device, and it has multiple bits of custom hardware there. So you've got lots of HDMI inputs, you've got an Ethernet jack, you've got USB inputs and outputs and all this. And it lets you switch different sources and then stream. It has a streaming encoder built in. So I can stream out to Instagram and TikTok vertically, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and custom RTMPs horizontally. Now you can't do the vertical and the horizontal at the same time. But with the Yolobox Pro, you couldn't do vertical at all. They had a completely separate device for that called the InStream, which did vertical streaming for TikTok. This one, no, it does it all, right? You just can't do them simultaneously. You can do multiple platforms at once, but only horizontal or vertical. So as you can see, we have all these different inputs. I'll show you those in a minute. Come on down. This is the idea, right? It's got lots of ways of connecting to the internet to actually do the streaming and lots of ways of bringing stuff in, different kind of sources. There's NDI, SRT, all these things that we're not going to get into here. It's definitely upgraded over the Pro. So here's the lineup, right? We've got the Yolobox Pro and the Ultra are the two in the middle. They've both got the same 8-inch display. The brightness is better on the Yolobox Ultra, 650 nits versus 400. The Pro was a touch dim. I was generally using it for daytime outdoor kind of gigs when I was streaming those. And yeah, I could have always welcomed a bit more brightness here. On the Ultra, we do have that little bit more. We have an extra HDMI input, so we've got 4 as opposed to 3. This one does ISO recording. If you're not familiar with ISO recording, that basically means it will record all of the input sources simultaneously. And you can record those to the SD card in the unit or to an external USB drive. So you can record those and then go back and edit your stream after the fact, which I really like that. It's got a bigger battery by quite some margin, 75.48 watt hours as opposed to 37. And so that is nearly double the battery life. They reckon up to 6 hours. I think from my testing, that's a bit optimistic. You're more likely to get sort of 4 to 5 hours with the screen on full brightness, etc. It's definitely a big improvement over the Pro, but it will still run off USB power anyway. So I don't really have an issue with the battery life. You can always plug it into USB and just power it there anyway. As DJs, generally, if we're doing long sets, we've got power, right? In the DJ booth, we have power. It has a more souped up Qualcomm Snapdragon processor, 8 gigs of RAM as opposed to 3 gigs. And it does that vertical and the horizontal streaming. And it does, though, that vertical streaming through apps, so you've actually got the TikTok app and the Instagram app installed here on the device. And that brings with it some positives and some negatives, which we'll kind of talk on later. Let's look at the physical hardware here. So here's an overhead view of the top of the device. So we've got our 4 HDMI inputs and our HDMI output, which I'm currently feeding to an Atomos Ninja V. And then we have the Ethernet jack, 2 USB-A ports, and those can be used for webcams. They can be used for USB to network dongles if you want to do kind of network bonding and stuff, which we'll touch on later. But they can also be used for bringing in videos from external drives. They're very much multifunctional ports. Then we look at the base of the device. Here we have the USB-C input for power. We have a 3.5mm line input, which is the whole reason we're talking about this device here on the channel. If we didn't have that, it would be a non-starter. We can feed in line level audio cleanly, directly from our mixer, from our controller, whatever we like, right? So that is just an essential for DJs. It's right there, as on the Pro, it works perfectly. There's also a mic input, 3.5mm headphone output, and a Type-C USB connector, which again can be used for webcam input. It can be used for output as well. I can record to an external SSD drive using that USB-C. All multifunctional, these USBs. In the middle, we have a 1/4-20 mount for mounting to a tripod or whatever. There is a SIM card slot. Now, it is only 4G, not 5G, so you're not going to get the very fastest data, but you can just stream over cellular data if you need to. Then there's the SD card slot. You can put your SD card in there. You can load up your overlays from that. You can load up video files from that, and you can record to that SD card as well. Really, really useful stuff. So that is the physical features of the device. What you're seeing now on the screen is the screen of the Yolobox. I'm mirroring this to the HDMI output. So you can see what I'm seeing. These are all touch targets here. Let's show you what we got hooked up. HDMI 1, we have me. That's the GH5 in front of me there. HDMI 2 is the additional device, the Yolo Deck, which is basically Yolo Live's equivalent of an Elgato Stream Deck. It's actually got bigger buttons than a Stream Deck, but it works in much the same way. I can push the buttons to switch between my sources, and I can even go live from there. I can add, there's a custom page, so you can customize it within the Yolobox itself, and I can actually go in and choose whatever I want to appear on these buttons, and there are multiple pages, etc. It's really good. It's about another $150 on top of the price of the Yolobox Ultra, which we should talk about pricing, right? It's not cheap. Okay, this I checked, it will vary, because it's an imported product. It will vary from time to time, and the tariffs thing is happening in the US and all that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, you might find the price fluctuates. Yesterday on B&H Photo, they were selling it for $1,400 in the US. Now, that's expensive, right? It's a lot of money, okay? But put it into context, right? If you wanted to stream on the go, then you're going to need a fairly powerful laptop, and that's going to cost you easily in the region of, $1,300, $1,400. Then if you wanted to do hardware streaming in the same way that I've been doing since the pandemic with my Blackmagic A10 Minis, right? So the A10 Mini Pro, then we've got the Extreme ISO, which is the one I've been using for the past couple of years. That doesn't have a screen, doesn't have a battery, any of that stuff. To control it, you do need a computer, and that is $1,300. So put it into context, right? Compared to a computer, compared to a high-end A10, this thing is well in the ballpark, especially when you consider all of the features that it has. Then we are definitely talking about, something very different. So price is in the eye of the beholder. I absolutely think it's worth it. Then we have HDMI 3. I've got an overhead camera on my regular streaming rig over there. That's just hooked up into this on HDMI 3. Then we've got USB 1. Now this is, and again, DJI still haven't sent me anything, still haven't paid me anything, but I love my Osmo Pocket 3 so much. This is the Osmo Pocket 3 connected as a webcam via USB, because it does work as a webcam. So there it is, connected via USB. As you can see, working perfectly. Love that. Then these are all video files down below. Here's my usual kind of size context video, so we can see the comparison with Skeletor and Optimus Prime there. It gives you an idea of just how compact this device is. It is nice and compact. The touch targets are fine to use, like they're not too small or anything, but yeah, really, really cool. Then here's another size comparison. There it is with a 7-inch 45 record. So you can see it's a nice compact device. Doesn't take up too much room in your bag. Really, really smooth. The screen display, by the way, is really, really nice. Like it's high definition, super clear, super precise, good viewing angles on it as well. No beef with any of that. And then the fourth HDMI, I've got, as I said, my iPad, which is running out of battery, but yeah, still, that's just USB-C to HDMI. Let's go back out then and let's talk about some of the other features here. So overlays, right? We can do image overlays. We can stack them in the order that we put them on. So they can go on. There's, as you can see, graphic design is my passion. But yeah, that's the idea. We can stack them whatever order we want. So you can have static graphics over there. This is the big thing which has just come in. I'm not sure if this is a ultra exclusive feature or if it's on the Pro now, but this is something that I always wanted on the Pro and I wasn't able to figure it out, certainly. Web overlays, right? So this is, I can put a URL in here to my overlays for my alerts and my notifications, etc., my emotes and all of that from Twitch, from Stream. Oh no, it's blank. I've basically wiped it out, but Streamlabs. So I was using Stream Elements, and Stream Elements doesn't seem to work on here, but Streamlabs does. So I've switched over to Streamlabs. By basically putting the URL in there, that means I can have my emotes popping up on screen. It means I can have my alerts popping up on screen when I'm on Twitch, which is a really powerful part of Twitch, right? That kind of instant visual feedback. When someone does something on your stream, you get that visual feedback, and I can have that there directly now on the Yolobox Ultra. It's super, super cool. So yeah, we can have web overlays as well. This section here is the network bonding. That is expensive, but if you're doing real mission critical stuff, you might want to do it. So you basically have multiple sources of networking running at the same time. There's your overlays tab. This is the platforms we can stream into in horizontal mode. So we've got YouTube, Facebook, custom RTMPs. You go to Restream or whatever you want, or SRTs. You can also do multi-streaming via YOLO Live servers as well. This is a feature that DJs generally won't use, I guess, but you can invite guests into your stream. So it's a bit like StreamYard, something like that. You put their email in, they get a link, they click on it, they can then join your stream, which is a very cool feature, just not, I think, generally something for DJs. Here's your audio mixer, right? So this is the audio mixer, very, very powerful. We can select audio follows video. So when you switch to a source, the audio will change. Generally as DJs, we just want the line input, right? That's all we ever really want. So we can adjust the delay on that because there is a delay with HDMI cameras and sources as a rule. So I'll just tweak the delay to make sure everything's synchronized perfectly. But yeah, love the audio mixer. And we've got the VU meters there. And always in the top left, it's kind of dim right now. You can't really see it too clearly, but there is, because there's no audio going through the Yolobox right now, but there is an audio meter in the top of the screen at all times, as there is a time display and a bandwidth and etc. So you can always see what's going on with your stream while you are performing. Editing Mojaxx here with a quick interjection. Whilst putting this video together, I discovered that you can also plug in a USB audio interface and feed audio directly into the Yolobox Ultra through that. This opens the door to a number of controllers and mixers on the market which are class compliant and I guess Android compatible. It worked flawlessly with my Native Instruments Complete Audio 2 interface, so I'll do some more testing on that with DJ Kit in the future for sure. There's a new background music feature that they've added, which is irrelevant for us because we're plugging in our controller or mixer to the line input anyway. There's a scoreboard, so if you're streaming, sports stuff, you might want a scoreboard. We don't want that. Don't care about that for DJing. There's instant replay. Again, I can't see a lot of feature, functionality for that for DJs, but it's there. You can literally do an instant replay of your stream, which is really clever. Right? It's cool. Auto switching is a feature I absolutely love. I put in so much work to make this happen on my ATEMs. by doing like scripting and everything. I had to do like XML editing, and it was a whole thing. Like it was a big faff. With this, you can just set it and turn it on. So I can choose my sources, choose the duration they're on screen for, whether to loop them, do them sequentially or randomly, and I can just start auto switch, and it will just auto switch my video sources for me. I love that. Like, that's brilliant. Let's start it now, shall we? So there you go. 1, and then a few seconds, it'll switch over to input number 2, and then it'll switch over to number 3. There we go. So it's switched. And I love that. It's completely hands off. You don't need to do anything with it. You start it running, it will just switch automatically. So if you're using multiple angles, yeah, that's brilliant. Comments is fantastic. This was there on the Yolobox Pro as well. Love this. So you can see the Twitch comments that are coming in, and you can click on one and it will appear on the screen. That's really great. Again, for audience interaction and everything else, really, really superb. Recording, you can record to the SD card. You can record to an external USB drive. You can choose the format that you do. You can also do the ISO recording, so you can record to multiple sources at once, up to 1080p, but you can record the output in 4K as you can stream in 4K, it's a bit excessive right now. I don't think many DJs are going to want to stream in 4K, but the fact you've got that ability to do that for future-proofing, awesome. And then you can choose the bitrate of your recording, H.264, H.265 format, all of that. You can have recording limits as well. You can record continuously or break it up into files, depending on what you want to do. Generally, I'd suggest continuous. Then we have our transitions. We can choose loads of different transitions, but I would always stick with switching, just a regular cut, because I think that's cleanest. Then we can head into the settings. We can choose the streaming mode. We can use YoloLiv's multi-stream or a single one. Stream encoding settings. You can choose all of your settings there. Video source. You can adjust what the local video files will do when you play them. The HDMI output, we can switch to a multi-view output like an 8M. We can have the program output on the HDMI, or we can mirror out, which is what I'm doing. So I'm mirroring the Yolobox screen to you there. So loads of choices. The USB-C, we can choose the output or input on that. So right now I'm output, so I can record to it. And you've got NDI output as well. If you're looking for more details on features like the NDI output, the instant replay and stuff, I do suggest you go and check out channels like Aaron Parecki. Like, he goes super deep on this. I'm not doing this because I'm just talking to DJs. I don't really want to get into it right now. This video will be long enough as it is. Now, quickly before we move on, let's do some editing of video sources here. So we have we can crop us. There we go. We can crop in on something. We can do 9:16. There we go. Let's do a bit of this, right? I'm going to green screen myself live now. Should we do that? Let's do that. Okay, so there's my crop. Done. Okay, now I'm going to go in and hit that gear icon again, and I'm going to do chroma keying, key switch on. There it is. Right, now I've got this green screen behind me. Here's a little pro tip, by the way. After the pandemic, lots of people got into streaming during the pandemic, not just DJs, but other people as well. And lots of people have their streaming kit that they bought sitting around in their house. They want to get rid of it. So do keep an eye on Facebook Marketplace and, Craigslist, places like that, because you might get some deals. This Elgato green screen behind me, which is a great green screen, cost like over 150 bucks. I got it for 20 on Facebook Marketplace a few weeks back. Brilliant, right? So just keep an eye on that. So we're just going to leave that like that. I'm not going to tweak it too much. We'll do a rough key for now, and let's make a little source, shall we? So we'll do a picture-in-picture video. My main source will be, let's choose the HDMI 2 and HDMI 1 for the secondary one. I'm going to move me over there. I'm going to make me bigger and take the border off, so there's no border. And there you go. Let's move to that picture-in-picture video, make it full screen. And in about 30 seconds, I've made a green screen. So that's pretty neat, right? I love that. Like, it's super handy. I've never really messed with green screen because I didn't have a proper green screen up until now. Now I do. There it is. I love this. Brilliant. So you can do your chroma keying right there. You can do all kinds of other things like 2 views, news layout, 3 views, customize, picture in picture, put it where you like. All of this, you can bring in NDI, you can do PDFs, you can do SRT. All of this is, it's wonderful. Just so much power there, so many different options for you to use. This is editing Mojaxx cutting in here because frankly the next part of the video was just waffle. I was trying to talk about the vertical aspect of the Yolobox Ultra because it's one of the key differentiators of the Ultra versus the Pro, so it's important to cover. My suspicion is that actually this device will sell more to TikTok live streamers than anyone else, and that's because, and you'll know this if you've ever tried to stream on that platform, they really want you to stream from within a native TikTok app. Apparently there are ways to get a stream key and use other software, but it's certainly not encouraged. But of course, then you're limited to the functionality of those native apps, which makes things like using more than 2 cameras, overlays and video files almost impossible. The same applies to Instagram too. I remember during the pandemic there was a lot of fuss around an app called Yolobox, which used to let you stream via OBS on there. They've now lifted that restriction and professional accounts can use something called Live Producer to connect Instagram to OBS, but using the native app is still preferable. YoloLive have got around all this in a rather cunning way by harnessing the Android nature of the Ultra and simply installing the TikTok and Instagram apps right there on the device. The Yolobox simply presents all of your cameras, overlays and audio feeds to the apps as the equivalent of the single camera and mic on a phone. Kind of genius. You can even log into both TikTok and Instagram at the same time and stream to both simultaneously. Now, this will certainly be useful for some buyers, but as I understand it, streaming a DJ set on Instagram is still not a great idea if you value keeping your account in good standing, so I don't recommend that. Aside from the whole app aspect of it, everything on the Yolobox Ultra works the same in vertical mode as in horizontal mode, so you can use multiple HDMI sources, webcams, local videos, overlays, all of the audio features, the lot. And if you'd like to view the comments and monitor the stream on a bigger screen, you can still output to a monitor via HDMI. You'll just want to stick that on an arm, which will allow you to position that vertically. To be honest, even after testing all this, I'm still not a fan of TikTok. It's just not the platform for me. So I doubt I'll be making much use of the vertical streaming option in the future myself. But if you're building an audience by streaming on there, I can't really think of any better solution than the Yolobox Ultra. In the world of horizontal streaming out to different platforms via a stream key, then there are plenty of other options on the market for you to consider. But in the vertical arena, the Yolobox stands pretty much alone. Okay, so far this video has largely consisted of me praising the Ultra, and rightly so, as it is very good. I will now highlight a few things which I'd like to see tweaked, improved or changed though. Firstly, the whole app thing for TikTok is incredibly smart, but it also puts you in a slightly precarious position, because as far as I can tell, there's no way to update those apps yourself, which means that if TikTok do some critical app update which breaks streaming on the old version somehow, you can't do anything about it until YoloLive update the Yolobox software in its entirety. Now, in fairness, updating the Ultra is something the company does on a remarkably frequent basis. There have been like 3 updates in the time I've had it here on review, but it's worth bearing in mind. Secondly, aside from messing about with NDI, there's only one way I can find to do video overlays with transparent backgrounds, by creating those overlays with green backgrounds and chroma keying them out. That does work, but it's not as clean as just being able to use a file with an alpha channel as you might do in OBS. Again, to be fair, my ATEMs can't do that natively either, but it's something I'd love to be able to achieve on the hardware. Also on my wish list, as with the Pro, I'd really like to be able to just build a stream and set that as my default. The way it works now, you can duplicate a previous stream from the menu, but I think that could be smoother. And whilst the latest version of the audio mixer in the software is much improved, it's still missing a limiter, which is something I would find very useful. It's not too hard to keep your levels in check when you're streaming at home or in the studio, but at gigs it can be a challenge sometimes. Finally, I will note that I have experienced a couple of crashes with the Ultra. I'll be making some changes to the settings in the software whilst building my streams, and I'll just be kicked out to the main menu. This is clearly just a software issue, nothing to do with the hardware, and crucially the Yolobox Ultra has never had any stability issues when I'm actually streaming, only during the building process. So it doesn't really bother me, but I'd be remiss if I didn't point it out. And it's certainly not enough to detract from what, overall, has been a highly reliable experience. I did love the Pro, but it was a little bit limited in some ways. This one, the Ultra, I'm just going to switch to this for my general streaming setup. Like, I'm retiring my ATEMs at this point because this does all the stuff my ATEMs did and a lot more with much less overhead because I don't need an extra computer to use whatsoever. I can see my Twitch comments here. I can have my Streamlabs alerts and stuff popping up on the screen. I literally remove a whole big section of my setup from it. Like, it's just down to this box and basically this box alone. Like, I could have another computer running my comments for better visibility if I wanted, but not necessary. So like, overall, yeah, this is a fantastic device. It won't be for everyone. It does cost a lot of money, you know, $1,300, that's a big chunk of change. But if you're deep in this live streaming thing, as many of you watching this will be at this point, I really do thoroughly recommend the Yolobox Ultra. It is an incredibly powerful device, way more powerful in many ways than DJs like myself actually need. But I love having that headroom available to me, so if I do want to expand what I do in the future, I can do it. The Yolobox Ultra, a fantastic bit of kit. And yeah, I'd love to know, did any of you pick up the Yolobox Pro or maybe the InStream over the past few years? Have you tried those out? What have your experiences been? And if you are streaming today, what is your streaming setup? Are you using OBS? Are you using hardware like an ATEM or a Yolobox? Let us know your setups down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel and you turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. I'll see you next time.